I walked out of the meeting room and realized that the second the door closed behind me, my entire team burst into a fit of laughter that made my ears burn with a sudden, sharp heat. I had just spent 20 minutes presenting my plan for the new marketing campaign, a project I had poured my heart and soul into for the last 3 months. I stood in the quiet hallway with my papers clutched to my chest, listening to my manager mock the way I had pronounced one of the client's names and hearing my colleagues agree that my ideas were out of touch. It was a level of two-faced cruelty that made the office feel like a hostile territory where I was the only person not in on the joke. My manager, a man named Brian, had been nodding and smiling during the entire presentation, even telling me that my research was impressive and that he was excited to move forward. I had felt so confident, so part of the team, for the first time since I started this job. But hearing his voice now, high-pitched and mocking as he imitated my passion, I realized that every smile he had given me was a match. My colleagues, people I had gone to lunch with and shared my personal goals with, were joining in, competing to see who could make the funniest comment about my performance. I felt a wave of nausea that made me want to just run to my car and never look back at that building again. I didn't run. Instead, I took a deep breath, turned around and pushed the heavy glass door back open with a force that made it hit the wall with a loud bang. The laughter stopped instantly, and the room went so quiet I could hear the clock ticking on the far wall as 5 faces looked up at me in absolute terror. Brian was still mid-sentence, his mouth open and his face turning a deep bruising shade of purple as he realized I had heard every single word of his performance. I walked straight to the head of the table where he was sitting, and I didn't say anything at first. I just looked at him until he had to turn his gaze away toward the window. If you had concerns about the quality of my work, you had 20 minutes to voice them while I was standing right in front of you. I said, my voice low and steady despite the roaring in my ears. Brian started to say something about it just being a way to blow off steam, but I held up my hand and cut him off before he could finish the excuse. I told the group that I didn't work for people who used my back as a target for their humor, and that I was withdrawing my campaign and my resignation effective immediately. I saw my colleagues start to stammer apologies, but I didn't listen to a word they said as I gathered my things from the table. I walked out of that building and I felt a strange sense of freedom that I hadn't felt in years. I had been trying so hard to fit into a culture that was fundamentally broken, and hearing that laughter was the wake-up call I needed to realize I deserved better. I spent the next week contacting the clients I had built relationships with, and within a month, I had started my own boutique agency with 3 of the biggest accounts from my old firm. They weren't staying for Brian's jokes. They were staying for the work I had done, and they were happy to follow me to a place where integrity was more than just a buzzword in a handbook. I learned that some people use laughter as a weapon to hide their own insecurities and their own lack of vision. My old team eventually fell apart because they spent more time mocking each other than they did focusing on the work, and Brian was demoted when the firm lost its biggest contracts. I have a new team now, and the first rule of our office is that we don't talk about anyone who isn't in the room to defend themselves. We laugh a lot, but it's never at someone's expense, and the atmosphere is so much more productive because of it. I realized